a very happy, but also very unfazed Chris Broussard. Broussard, gentlemen, has been telling us the Clippers would hit their stride, and the Clippers hit their stride, closing out the series with the Mavericks last night. Luka did his part, 38 points, but so did Kawhi, 33 and 14 as the Clippers move on to round two. Hey, Broussard, what did Kawhi and the Clippers prove in this series, in your opinion?
I don't really think they proved anything except to maybe those doubters / haters out there like Nick Wright. I mean, they did what they were supposed to do, okay? Now, you can argue they should have taken out a 7th seed that was without its second best player for the most part in 4 or 5 games, and that's fair. But I actually think it was good that they got tested. It forced them to bring out their toughness, their physical play, their hard-nosed demeanor. Kawhi Leonard was a closer. That didn't surprise us. Here's the thing about Kawhi. Aside from his steely mentality, what makes him a great closer is that mid-range game. And I know the analytics guys like Nick hate the mid-range. But when you can get to a spot on the floor, several spots on the floor, in the mid-range, that is a huge advantage when it comes to closing games, especially when you're a guy who can also go all the way to the rim or hit the three. But the last thing I'm going to say, what I loved last night was that they showed they've got another option to Lou Williams late in games. Reggie Jackson, with his 4 3-pointers in the fourth quarter, 12 points, if he's playing well, I'm just saying it's not. If he's playing well, you can have him in late in games because he's a better defender than Lou Williams. So if he's got it going offensively, especially if Paul George is hot, then you don't have to have Lou on the floor necessarily at the end of games. I know he's one of their closers, but you don't have to have him on the floor at the end of games, and opponents can't hunt him defensively like we've seen the Lakers do late in games against the Clippers. So that was a nice wrinkle and new development that I like.
All right, instead they'd have defensive stalwart Reggie Jackson out there. But all right, so listen. This
better than Lou, that's all I'm saying.
Better than Lou, that is true. This really pains me because I adore Chris Broussard. I adore him so much that Stan Van Gundy came after him on Twitter this weekend, and I like Stan a lot, and I told Broussard I'll write him off. I'll just Stan Van Gundy on my enemies list if he puts in the call. That's how much I adore Chris Broussard. But everything he just said about the Clippers is infuriating. First of all, before the series, not only did I pick Clippers in 6 and Broussard said I was wrong, I gave maybe the most specific prediction anyone's ever given. I said it will be Clippers in 6, and in the fourth quarter of Game 6, it will be a close game. I will text Broussard, "Are you nervous yet?" And then the Clippers will pull away, which is exactly how this series went, despite the fact that Kristaps Porzingis played 10 quarters. There are two categories on the Clippers commentary. One is how great Kawhi was. The other is how mediocre the rest of the team was throughout this series. They had no answer for Luka, who had arguably the second best debut playoff series of anybody of the last 30 years. They had no answer for, who was Luka's best teammates for most of this series were Trey Burke, Seth Curry, and Tim Hardaway Jr.
Seth Curry.
And it's still a 6-point game in the fourth quarter of Game 6. So Kawhi was utterly sensational, Brandon, from start to finish. Oh, and the one other thing I have to say, Chris, you've got to, you and Van Gundy and Jackson keep saying analytics folks hate the mid-range game. Not from Kawhi, not from Chris Paul, not from the guys who it's a good shot for. The mid-range shot is a bad shot for the vast majority of players. For guys such as Kawhi, a handful of guys, it's a good shot. So you got to say the analytics folks hate Kawhi's mid-range game. No, we don't. But Brandon, Kawhi was great. I don't know how otherwise you can be incredibly impressed by what the Clippers did.
Yeah, I'll be quick here because it comes down to one thing, and it comes down to Kawhi. You just said it. you know, in that fourth quarter really made me go back and do my homework, and it made me appreciate Kawhi and his presence. Not only, before we even get to the offense, I mean, we saw this guy diving on the floor. We saw this guy even getting emotional and cursing out his teammates in a good way. We saw this guy playing lights out defense. But when you dive into the numbers, it mimics last year's championship run. He started this series with 29 points. And then he followed it up with 36, then 35, then 36, then 32, then 32, and then he closed it out with another 33. He's been overshadowed by the Paul George headlines. Him not showing up, him showing up. Luka, how awesome Luka is. I was one of those guys talking about Luka. Still will talk about Luka. And then now we just threw Marcus Morris into that mix as well. We literally have not been talking about the biggest storyline in probably the NBA playoffs. Like, this guy's been playing lights out, and it's scary to think about if Paul George can actually show up on a consistent level. And to your point, if there's other people around him that can step up and play ball, I mean, the Lakers are going to be in trouble, Nick.
Ooh.
Look, I don't think they're going to be in trouble necessarily. Maybe. Look, Paul George called Kawhi Mr. Reliable. And we know he wasn't Mr. Reliable earlier in the year, Broussard, because he likes to take some time off. But to me, no big deal, because everything got better. Points got better, rebounds got better, assists got better, field goal percentage got better, field goal attempts got better. Between that and between the New Balance and the mid-range game, he's also king of old man basketball. So to me, I have no issue, Broussard, with him taking time off or how he handled the regular season. And the proof is in the pudding that this is how he's performing now because he took all that time off.
Oof. Yeah, look, I'm not a fan of load management. And if the Clippers go ahead and win the finals like I've predicted, it could be bad for basketball because we could just see more and more load management with the top players. However, the dude is bad. And I think in Kawhi's case is legit because I do think there's some degenerative stuff going on with that knee. So I think it's legitimate, but it's not a great precedent for other players who will take advantage of it.
Broussard, I just don't get it. You don't because people.
Well, Nick, you know exactly, Nick, you know exactly what I was going to say. You know, I don't understand. Are we trying to entertain guys in the regular season, or are we trying to win championships? Yes. Like, what are we trying to accomplish?
Here's what I'd say, Brandon. If they can't play 82, if they can't play 82 games, and a lot of teams, you know, their science is saying 82 games are too much. Cut the season to 65. But they want 82-game money for 65 games of play. So you can't have think about this. Or you should be able to.
So LeBron James. So how does LeBron James approach load management?
He plays 75 games every year. Yeah. Right. That's the thing. He plays Brandon, the load management thing is it's one guy that we're talking about. Nobody is arguing, Brandon. Everyone needs to play all 82. But missing a quarter of the season in consecutive years is bad for the league when you're that level of player.
LeBron James is like Messi. These guys, their movement on the court is very minimum. So when we talk about load management, some guys do it on the bench and some guys do it on the floor. You can look at the last five years and seeing LeBron James actually take his time on the court and pace himself. Yep. So he's just doing it in a smart way.
I agree with that entirely. Of course, you're pacing yourself throughout the season. To me, that's a huge difference from missing games. I want to, though, give Kawhi credit here before we move on for one other thing. One of my concerns with the load management and with how low minutes he was playing throughout the year was in the playoffs when they need him to play 40 minutes per, was he going to be able to? He averaged 40 minutes a game in this series. So like if the Clippers can get not only this efficiency out of Kawhi, but where he's only resting 7 to 8 minutes a game, that is a huge boon for them because you know the Lakers are getting that out of LeBron. So all the credit in the world to Kawhi for how he played in this first round. The rest of his teammates need to up their level of play by round 2, Jen.
All right, speaking of LeBron, we'll get to the Lakers' gentleman's sweep of the Blazers next on First Things First. Scrappy Browns Mark Ingram, little honesty, saying we still have strides to go to be the team we want to be. Our friends at Fox Bet don't think it's that many strides. They've got the Ravens at plus 650 to win the Super Bowl. Only the Chiefs with better odds. Hey, Brandon, what's the biggest key, you think, to Lamar and the Ravens representing the AFC in the Super Bowl this year?
Just that, the maturation of Lamar Jackson. I mean, this guy's a once-in-a-generation type player. It reminds me of Tom Brady. It reminds me of Peyton Manning. And I was trying to figure out how to describe this to you guys. And the best thing that came up was this. When we used to sit in meetings, game planning for the New England Patriots, the Indianapolis Colts, our scheme changed. Everything that we did, not only on defense, but on offense changed. The way to stop Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, we actually changed our entire offensive scheme. We went more clock management and ball control than actually running the plays that we were used to playing, because we knew the only chance that we had was to keep the ball out of those guys' hands. And that's Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson can beat you on both ends. He can throw it, he can run it. So the only way